What if I told you that the voice destroying your life isn't coming from the outside, but from within? That the real enemy isn't your circumstances, your past, or the people who doubted you. It's the thoughts you let crawl into your mind and take root. You feel tired, overwhelmed, unmotivated. But have you ever stopped to ask why? Why do you keep doubting yourself, even when you know you're capable of more? Why do your own thoughts tear you down instead of lifting you up? This isn't just overthinking. It's a war of perception, and most people are losing because they don't even realize they're fighting. The truth is, negative thinking doesn't just weigh on your mood. It burns through your purpose, tears at your discipline, and paralyzes your will. But what if there were ancient laws, ruthless, tested, and rooted in Stoic philosophy, that could silence that inner chaos and rebuild your mind into something unshakable? Stay with me, because today we're not sugarcoating anything. We're cutting to the truth, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you're ready to stop letting fear and doubt control the narrative and start building a life of clarity, strength, and self-mastery, please subscribe for the version of you that's waiting to be claimed. Law 1. Attack the root, not the symptom. Most people live inside a noisy head without even realizing it. Their minds are full of little fires, anxious thoughts, restless worries, sharp bursts of self-doubt, and they spend every day putting them out one by one. But here's the catch. No matter how many times you stomp them out, they come back. Why? Because you're treating symptoms, not sources. You're busy calming the noise, but you're not asking where it's coming from. Stoicism teaches us that the mind is not a random storm, it's a pattern. And when we don't examine that pattern, we suffer the same mental attacks over and over again. This is where real self-mastery begins, not by reacting, but by investigating. It means getting honest about what's underneath the thought, the fear, the story, the wound. Let's say your mind keeps whispering, "You're falling behind." Most people will try to distract themselves, scrolling, eating, rushing into busy work. But the Stoic takes a breath and digs deeper. Am I really behind? Or am I comparing myself to someone who doesn't even live my life? Or maybe I'm tying my worth to someone else's timeline. These aren't just thoughts, they're roots. And if you don't deal with them, they grow back stronger. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But your reaction isn't just emotional, it's also habitual, and habits come from roots. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That line hits hard, because most of our suffering doesn't come from the world. It comes from the stuff inside us that we never look at. That fear of judgment you carry, that's not just a personality trait. That's a root. It probably started years ago, maybe even in childhood. The moment you felt that being yourself wasn't enough. And now, every decision you make, what you say, what you wear, what you hide, is shaped by that root. The Stoic doesn't ignore this. They don't cover it up with fake positivity. They confront it, not because they're fearless, but because they know fear grows stronger in silence. Every negative thought is a flare. It wants your attention, not so you'll panic, but so you'll investigate. Because once you understand where a thought is coming from, you can challenge it. You can talk back to it. You can change the behavior that feeds it. Think about it. If you walk into your house and see water on the floor, do you just mop it up every day? Or do you go find the leak and fix it? That's what this law is about. Fixing the leak. Facing the thing you've been avoiding. Here's the beautiful part. When you stop swatting at symptoms and start cutting the root, everything changes. Your anxiety doesn't own you. Your doubt doesn't paralyze you. Your sadness doesn't spiral into shame. Why? Because you've seen where it lives. And once you see the root, it loses its power. You can decide what to do with it. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He's not denying that pain exists. He's saying most of our suffering is a loop we create by avoiding the real source. That's what cutting the root prevents. It breaks the loop. Let's make this real. Next time you feel overwhelmed, instead of saying, "I can't handle this," say, "What exactly am I afraid of?" Get specific. Are you afraid you'll disappoint someone? That you'll fail publicly? That you'll waste your time? Write it down, then go one step deeper. Why would that outcome hurt you so much? What belief do you have about yourself that's making that fear feel bigger than it is? That's where the root lives. And once you name it, you can decide, does this belief belong here? Or is it time to let it go? This isn't always comfortable. In fact, it rarely is. Facing the truth never is. But discomfort is not your enemy. It's your guide. That edge you feel when you dig deeper, that's where freedom starts. And this isn't just about fixing problems. It's about reclaiming power. The power to respond rather than react. The power to choose clarity over confusion. The power to act, even when your mind wants to run. You don't need more distractions. You don't need more motivation posters. You need precision. You need to look your fear in the face and say, "I see you. I know where you came from, but you don't drive anymore." That's Stoicism. That's self-leadership. And once you start living like that, cutting the root instead of trimming the leaves, you stop being at the mercy of your thoughts. You become the one in charge. Law 2. Control the frame, or be controlled by it. Sometimes life throws something at you that stops you in your tracks. Maybe you get rejected. Maybe a plan falls apart. Maybe someone you trusted walks away. And instantly your mind rushes in to explain what just happened. But here's the catch: how you explain it to yourself is everything. Because your brain isn't just recording the event, it's assigning meaning to it. And that meaning becomes your reality. The Stoics knew this deeply. They understood that pain, failure, and discomfort are unavoidable, but suffering is optional. That's the difference between what happens to you and what you tell yourself about what happened. Let's say you lose a job. Some people spiral. They tell themselves, "I failed. I'm not good enough. I'll never bounce back." But someone else, same job loss, might say, "Maybe this was the push I needed. Now I can finally pursue something that actually matters to me." Same event, different frame, and that frame changes everything. Epictetus once said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." He's not sugarcoating anything. He's reminding you that the story you attach to the moment holds more power than the moment itself. You ever notice how some people seem unshaken by chaos? It's not that they don't feel anything. It's that they've trained their minds to reframe faster. When something goes wrong, they don't fall into despair. They pause, they pivot, they ask better questions. That's what Stoicism teaches. Not to pretend life doesn't hurt, but to choose a response that strengthens you instead of breaking you. So the next time life hits you with something unexpected, try this. Instead of saying, "This isn't fair," say, "What can I learn here?" Instead of, "I can't handle this," ask, "What part of me is being tested right now?" The moment you ask a stronger question, you build a stronger mind. Carl Jung put it this way: "It all depends on how we look at things and not how they are in themselves." That's a deep truth, because so much of what we call reality is just our mental interpretation of it. We think we're seeing the world clearly, but often we're just seeing it through old wounds, fears, expectations. Your perception becomes your prison or your power. If your inner voice is always framing things as personal attacks, failures, or setbacks, then of course life will feel heavy. But when your mind starts to say, "This is a challenge," or "This is part of the process," or even "This is training," then you step into ownership. You begin to control the frame rather than be controlled by it. And let's be honest, most people don't do this. Most people hand over the pen and let fear, shame, or old programming write the script. Something goes wrong and suddenly their whole identity crumbles. But not you, not anymore. You're here because you want sovereignty. You want to train your mind, not just to survive difficulty, but to lead through it. That begins with catching the moment your inner dialogue kicks in and choosing a better story. Let's get practical. Say someone criticizes your work. Your first instinct might be to take it personally. They don't respect me. I must not be good enough. But step back. Control the frame. This is feedback. I'm being sharpened, or you get ghosted by someone you care about. Your mind might want to spiral. I must be unlovable. Catch it. Flip it. That says more about their clarity than my worth. The facts don't change, but the emotional weight does. You lighten the load by choosing a frame that's rooted in growth, not defeat. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what framing is. It's reminding yourself that no matter what happens out there, you still control what happens in here, your thoughts, your meanings, your reactions. You can't always change the external, but you always have the power to change the lens through which you interpret it. That's where your freedom lives. And listen, this isn't about fake positivity. This isn't about pretending life is easy or pretending you're never hurt. This is about clarity, because once you realize that your story determines your strength, you stop playing the victim and start shaping your own reality. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How can I use this?" And that single shift, that can change your entire direction. Think about the last time something knocked you down. Not just what happened, but what you told yourself about it. That story shaped how you felt, how you acted, what you did next. So what if you chose a new story? What if you made that your daily practice? Wake up, something annoys you. You pause and say, "This is my patience workout." Someone rejects you. "This is teaching me to validate myself." You fail at something. This is fuel for refinement. The more you do this, the more your mind becomes a tool for strength instead of a trap for stress. The world is going to test you. That's not a question. The question is, will you let every setback define you? Or will you learn how to define the setback? Will you let life control your frame? Or will you take the frame into your own hands and bend it toward meaning, toward discipline, toward resilience? Law 3. Build a mind that's a fortress, not a doorway. Most people don't realize how exposed their minds are. They wake up and instantly check their phones. They scroll, they react, they absorb. Opinions, criticisms, bad news, reminders of what they're not doing. Without even noticing, they're letting every outside voice walk straight into their thoughts and rearrange the furniture. And after a few hours, they wonder why they feel drained, anxious, scattered. But here's the truth. Your mind isn't supposed to be a hallway with open doors. It's meant to be a fortress. Stoicism teaches us that what enters your mind determines how you live your life. And if you don't control the gates, someone else will. Think about it. If you owned a castle, would you let just anyone walk in? Would you let a stranger wander through your rooms, shout insults, break your windows and leave? Of course not. But that's exactly what we do with our thoughts. Someone says something offhand, and we carry it all day. One bad outcome, and we spiral into worst-case scenarios. We don't question the thought, we just believe it. we hand it a seat at the table. This is why the idea of a fortress mind matters, because the world is full of noise, some of it subtle, some of it's loud. But all of it is trying to influence you. Advertising, social media, the expectations of others, your own inner critic, they all want in. And if your mental walls are weak, they'll get in. But when your mind becomes a fortress, you start filtering. You don't believe every negative thought just because it shows up. You don't accept every opinion just because it's loud. You stop being reactive. You start being selective. And that's where power begins. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." That awakening happens the moment you realize you don't have to accept every thought that appears. You get to question it. You get to decide whether it serves you. You get to respond instead of react. But that only happens when you build walls, not to block out life, but to protect your clarity, your focus, your peace. Now let's talk discipline, because building a fortress mind doesn't happen by accident. It takes repetition. Every time you notice yourself spiraling into self-doubt and you stop, breathe and refocus, that's a brick. Every time you catch a useless comparison before it ruins your day, that's another brick. Every time you refuse to engage with drama or feed a fear that isn't real, that's another one. It's not about being emotionless, it's about building structure. Seneca said, "No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have." That's a fortress mindset, choosing restraint over reaction, choosing inner control over outer chaos. But here's the part most people miss. Not every thought is yours. Some are echoes from childhood, some are projections from other people, some are just noise picked up from the world. And if you don't slow down and examine them, they'll run your life. You'll think you're making decisions, but you're just following scripts you never wrote. This is why the Stoics practiced journaling, reflection, silence, to strengthen the inner walls, to know what was truly theirs and what wasn't. So how do you start building this fortress? First, you watch the gate. When a thought enters, don't just accept it. Ask, is this helpful? Is this true? Is this mine? If it's a lie, a distraction or a burden, let it go. Slam the gate. Next, limit the voices you allow in. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Choose your influences the way you'd choose someone to guard your home, carefully, intentionally, and most importantly, create daily habits that reinforce mental strength. Meditation, reading, reflection, journaling, cold exposure, silence. These aren't trends, they're bricks, and the more you stack them, the more unshakable your mind becomes. Let's be honest, life isn't going to get quieter. The world isn't suddenly going to become more peaceful, more supportive, more tailored to your emotional safety. If anything, it'll get louder, more pressure, more opinions, more distractions. So the question isn't, will I be tested? It's, will I be ready? The fortress mind doesn't mean nothing gets to you. It means when something does get through, you don't fall apart. You pause, you assess, you respond with strength, not emotion. And the best part? People notice. Not because you're flashy, but because you're stable. You become the one who doesn't panic when things go wrong, who doesn't gossip when everyone else is spiraling, who listens more than they speak, who doesn't need to prove anything, because they've built something inside that speaks for itself. That kind of presence isn't built overnight, but it is built day by day, thought by thought, wall by wall. Law 4. Detach from what you can't command. It starts with good intentions. You care about something or someone, and naturally, you want it to go well. You want to succeed, be seen, feel appreciated, feel secure. And at first, that seems harmless. But little by little, that care turns into attachment. Suddenly, you're not just doing your best at work. You're tying your self-worth to whether your boss praises you. You're not just enjoying a relationship. You're depending on it to feel whole. You're not just using social media. You're letting the numbers decide if today was a good day or not. And that's where things start to break. Not because caring is wrong, but because attachment blurs the line between what you can command and what you never truly owned in the first place. Stoicism makes one thing painfully clear: the only thing that's truly yours is your response, your thoughts, your decisions, your actions. Everything else, outcomes, opinions, relationships, rewards, is outside your control. Epictetus put it simply: some things are up to us and some things are not. And it's the things that are not that usually cause us the most pain. Not because they hurt us directly, but because we cling to them with the belief that they define us. That kind of thinking will always lead to suffering. Think of it like this: you're holding a rope. On the other end is something or someone you care deeply about. But that thing starts to sink. It pulls, and you feel the tension in your hands. You could let go, but you don't. You tell yourself you have to hold on. You convince yourself that letting go means failure, means giving up. So you hold tighter. And as you do, your arms start to burn. Your grip weakens, and slowly, without even realizing it, you're being pulled under too. That's what emotional attachment does. It promises connection, but delivers pain. It looks like strength, but becomes a leash. Carl Jung said, "Whatever you are not changing, you are choosing." And when you continue clinging to what is clearly hurting you, that's exactly what you're doing: choosing pain, choosing powerlessness. Stoicism teaches the opposite: not apathy, but clarity; not coldness, but command. Detachment isn't about being numb or distant. It's about separating your peace from what you cannot predict. It's saying, "I'll show up. I'll give my full effort, but I won't let my joy depend on what's outside of me." That's not weakness. That's maturity. Here's the thing: detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing. You can love someone deeply without tying your worth to whether they stay. You can pour your heart into a project without letting failure define your value. You can chase a goal with full force and still accept the outcome with grace. That's what the Stoics did. Marcus Aurelius led an empire, faced plagues, betrayal, and war. Yet he wrote, "You have to assemble your life yourself, action by action." He didn't wait for fortune to favor him. He acted, detached from praise, detached from fear. In the modern world, detachment feels almost rebellious. We're told to hustle harder, to care more, to push through. We're praised for how much we give, but rarely asked what it's costing us. That's why so many people burn out, because they're gripping too tightly to things they don't control. Outcomes, likes, loyalty. They live on edge, trying to force stability from things that were never theirs to own. And the more they chase it, the more it slips away. But once you begin detaching, something surprising happens. You start to feel light again, grounded, present. You stop spinning stories about what if and come back to what is. You stop chasing people and start attracting peace. So much of our anxiety is wrapped around futures we've invented, around results that haven't happened, around people who may never change. And still, we cling. But when you practice detachment, you stop bleeding energy into things that don't respond to your effort. You begin to focus only on what you can actually shape: your breath, your habits, your attention, your attitude. So how do you apply this? Start small. When something doesn't go your way, instead of spiraling, ask yourself, was this mine to control? If the answer is no, release it. When someone disappoints you, instead of lashing out, remind yourself, Their actions are theirs. My reaction is mine. When you feel anxiety about the future, bring yourself back to the only thing you can actually touch, this moment. What can I do right now that aligns with my values? That's all you ever need to do. Detachment is a daily practice. It's not a one-time decision. Some days you'll let go with ease. Other days it'll feel like tearing a piece of yourself away. But the more you practice, the stronger your center becomes. And eventually, you won't need to try to detach. You'll simply stop attaching in the first place. You'll love without fear, give without expectations, act without needing recognition. That's when your mind becomes free. And maybe the most powerful shift is this. Once you stop clinging to what you can't command, you start commanding what you can. Your clarity sharpens, your energy returns, your discipline deepens. You stop chasing peace and start generating it from within. That's what Stoicism was always about. Not indifference, but independence. Not withdrawal, but wisdom. It's the kind of freedom that no person, no loss, no failure can take from you. Law 5. Turn pain into power. No one gets through life without pain. That's not a threat, it's just the truth. You'll be disappointed, you'll be rejected, you'll mess things up, and you'll be hurt by things that are unfair. But the real question is, what will you do with it? Most people try to escape pain. They numb it, they avoid it, they try to pretend it didn't happen. But pain ignored becomes pain recycled. It leaks into your habits, your relationships, your self-talk. You start building your identity around wounds you never healed. That's where the Stoic approach flips the script. Because instead of running from pain, Stoicism says, face it, study it, use it, make it your fuel, not your prison. The Stoics didn't ask for a life without difficulty. They didn't beg the universe to keep them safe. They trained to endure it. They trained to use it. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire during wars and plagues, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. That's not just poetic, that's practical. It means that pain, failure, and setbacks aren't detours from the path. They are the path. They are how you grow, how you get sharper, stronger, wiser, but only if you stop treating pain like a curse and start treating it like a teacher. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." That means discomfort is the doorway to self-awareness. Think about it. When do you grow the most? When everything is easy and perfect? Or when something breaks and you're forced to look inward? The breakup that shattered your confidence, the job loss that made you question your worth, the failure that felt like the end. Those moments hurt, yes, but they also hold power. They expose what's weak and give you a chance to rebuild with something stronger, something real. But here's the catch. You have to choose to use the pain, because pain doesn't automatically make you stronger. It can break you if you let it. It can make you bitter, resentful, stuck. Or it can forge something new inside of you. The difference is in the story you attach to it. Most people go through pain asking, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoic asks, "How can I use this?" That one shift changes everything. Let's say you fail at something big. You lose money, you get humiliated, you let people down. You could fall into shame, you could hide. You could let that failure define your identity, or you could break it down. Ask, what did this reveal about me? Where was I unprepared? Where was I overconfident? What patterns do I need to change? When you do that, the failure becomes information. It becomes leverage. It becomes your edge. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." And he meant it. Pain, when embraced properly, becomes the weight that builds your mental muscle. rejection. That's another form of power. If you stop taking it personally, you didn't fit someone's expectations. Great. Now you have space to build your own. Someone walked away. Good. You just got handed clarity. And clarity is one of the most underrated weapons on the path to personal power. Every no you hear teaches you more about your yes. Every door that closes is a filter that sharpens your direction. But to use pain this way, you need discipline, emotional discipline, the ability to sit with pain long enough to understand it without letting it destroy you. That's where the Stoic practice of reflection comes in. Journaling, silence, stillness. When something hurts, don't just react. Observe. Write it down. Break it apart. What did it touch inside you? What belief did it challenge? What strength did it reveal you didn't know you had? This isn't about suppressing pain. It's about metabolizing it, turning it into mental nutrition. Now, imagine what happens when you start doing this consistently. When your default response to setbacks isn't panic or self-pity, but analysis and action. You lose, and instead of collapsing, you lean in, you get criticized, and instead of taking it as a wound, you take it as feedback. You get knocked down, and instead of asking, "Why me?" you say, "Watch me." That's what power looks like. Quiet, resilient, relentless. The Stoics were not perfect. They felt pain like the rest of us. But what made them rare is that they refused to waste it. They treated life like a forge, and everything that hurt them became a flame. Every scar became a lesson. Every bruise became proof they were still standing. That mindset isn't just ancient wisdom. It's a weapon you can carry every single day. So whatever pain you're carrying right now, don't bury it. Don't wish it away. Study it, sharpen it, use it. Ask yourself, how can this make me wiser? How can this make me stronger? How can this become my advantage instead of my excuse? Because here's the final truth. You don't become powerful by avoiding storms. You become powerful by becoming the storm. You become the force that grows in difficulty, that learns in failure, that sharpens in darkness. You don't wait for things to get easier. You get tougher. You don't wait for the world to hand you peace. You earn it, brick by brick, through every hardship you've ever endured. Law 6. Let silence be your superpower. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing, not out of fear, not because you're unsure, but because you've learned the difference between expression and exposure. We live in a time where everyone's expected to have an opinion about everything, to post it, share it, shout it, vent it. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. The more you speak your weakness out loud, the more you reinforce it. That moment when you say, "I'm just so anxious," or "I feel like I'm not enough," might feel like relief. But often, what you're really doing is carving those words deeper into your identity. The Stoics understood this long before it became a cultural norm to overshare. They didn't suppress their emotions. They contained them. They didn't fake strength. They cultivated silence as a form of power. Negative thoughts thrive on volume. The louder you speak them, the more they echo. And the more they echo, the more real they feel. Have you ever noticed how saying something out loud can suddenly make it heavier, more dramatic, more intense? That's because you're not just thinking it anymore. You're performing it. You're handing it shape, voice, meaning, and the brain is listening. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." Now add speech into that mix, and it multiplies. That's why the Stoics were careful with their words, because they understood something we've mostly forgotten. Your words shape your world. Carl Jung echoed a similar insight from a psychological perspective when he said, "The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him." What he meant was, The more you talk without thinking, the more you dull your awareness of what's truly going on inside you. Silence, on the other hand, forces introspection. It makes you sit with discomfort instead of outsourcing it through noise. And that discomfort? That's where the transformation happens. Silence doesn't mean you're disconnected. It means you're deliberate. It means you're choosing when and how to use your energy. Because here's the thing, every time you explain yourself, justify your emotions, or vent about things you can't control, you're giving your power away. You're handing out pieces of your clarity to people who might not even understand your world. The Stoics didn't play that game. They believed in stillness over noise. They trained themselves not to respond to every provocation, not to explain their strategy, not to argue with people committed to misunderstanding them. Instead, they let their actions do the speaking. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Now think about how much time and energy is wasted explaining things that didn't need explaining, sharing thoughts that didn't need voicing, chasing validation that didn't make you stronger. Silence isn't about being mysterious for the sake of it. It's about protecting your focus. It's about not handing your blueprint to people who haven't earned it. And it's about giving your words weight so that when you do speak, it matters. Let's go even deeper. Silence trains emotional control. When you resist the urge to vent or complain, you're not bottling emotions. You're learning to hold them, to study them, to master them. You're learning not to be impulsive. And over time, that builds a kind of inner discipline that no external praise can give you. Because now, when life pushes you, you don't flinch. You don't need to prove anything. You become calm, steady, unreadable. That's a rare kind of power. But here's the twist. People will misunderstand your silence. They'll say you're distant, cold, detached. Let them. That's part of it. When you're quiet, people project. They wonder what you're thinking. They try to guess what your next move is. And that gives you strategic advantage. Not because you're trying to manipulate anyone, but because clarity loves stillness, and confusion often defeats itself. The Stoics didn't reveal everything, and neither should you. In a noisy world, stillness creates contrast, and contrast creates presence. You've probably heard the saying, "Don't speak unless you can improve the silence." That's not just a poetic line. It's a Stoic principle in action. Before you speak, ask, is this necessary? Is this useful? Does this reflect the person I want to be? If the answer is no, say nothing. Let your silence be a filter, because the fewer words you use, the more intentional you become with the ones you do choose. And when your words are rare, they hit harder, they echo longer. Aristotle once said, "Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something." And that's a hard truth in today's world, where constant expression is confused with wisdom. The Stoic doesn't need to announce their thoughts to prove they've had them. They don't need to share every detail to feel real. They move with presence, speak with intention, and keep their internal world sacred. So how do you start making silence your strength? Begin by practicing restraint. When you feel the need to immediately vent, pause. When someone insults you or triggers you, pause. When you're unsure what to say, pause. In those pauses, you'll start to feel something new. Control. And that control is the soil where confidence grows. It's the space where clarity enters. And it's the moment where reaction ends and response begins. This isn't about being silent forever. It's about learning the value of silence. So when you speak, it comes from strength, not insecurity. You speak because you've already thought it through. You speak because it adds value. You speak because it aligns with your principles. And when you live like that, people feel your presence, even when you say nothing at all. Law 7. Rewrite the story you live under. Every single morning, whether you realize it or not, you wake up inside a story. Not one written by fate or forced by circumstance, but one written by you. The way you think about yourself, the beliefs you carry about who you are, what you're worth, and what you're capable of. That story doesn't always speak loudly, but it runs deep. Sometimes it whispers, "I'm not good enough." Other times it shouts, "This always happens to me." And often we just accept those lines as truth, but they're not truth. They're habits, mental scripts that we've repeated for so long, they start to feel real. But the truth is, you can change the story. And when you do, everything changes with it. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew the mind could be either your strongest ally or your greatest enemy, depending on what you allowed it to repeat. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Think about that for a second. If you constantly feed your mind the language of limitation, fear, or self-doubt, your identity slowly takes on that color. You start living like a person who can't change, can't grow, can't rise. But if you change the language, if you change the narrative, you start living like someone who can, and that's where power begins. Let's make this simple. Your brain believes what it hears the most. That includes what it hears from you. If you keep saying things like, "I'm not a confident person," or "I always mess up," or "This is just who I am," then your mind will build behaviors that match those beliefs. It doesn't question you, it follows you. Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." But here's the twist. What you do is shaped by what you believe. So if your beliefs are rooted in weakness, even your strongest actions will feel like you're pushing against yourself. Now ask yourself, where did your current story come from? Who wrote the script you're living by? Was it a teacher who told you you weren't smart? A parent who didn't believe in you? A friend who betrayed your trust? Or maybe it was failure, repeated so many times that you started thinking it defined you. But none of those things get to hold the pen anymore, unless you let them. You are not obligated to live under a story that was written from someone else's fear, someone else's misunderstanding, or even your own past mistakes. That story can be changed. Rewriting your story doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means choosing a frame that strengthens you instead of weakening you. The Stoics never said to ignore fear. They simply didn't let it control the narrative. Instead of saying, "I'm afraid, so I'll avoid it," they said, "Fear is a signal. It means I'm stepping into something meaningful." Instead of saying, "This situation is unfair," they said, "This is a chance to practice justice and endurance." That shift in language isn't just poetic, it's practical. It moves you from victim to author, from passive to powerful. And this isn't about becoming some overly optimistic version of yourself. This is about becoming accurate. Because most of your negative self-talk isn't just unhelpful, it's inaccurate. You're not lazy, you're overwhelmed and unclear. You're not weak, you're untrained. You're not a failure, you're in the middle of learning. Plato said, "The beginning is the most important part of the work." And the beginning of every transformation is the story you choose to tell yourself when no one is watching. So how do you rewrite it? Start by catching the default phrases you say when you're stressed or doubting yourself. Do you say, "I always do this," or "I knew I'd mess it up," or "Of course it happened to me"? Those are not just thoughts, they're scripts. And if you repeat them often enough, they shape your actions, your tone, your posture, your entire way of being. Begin replacing them, not with fake positivity, but with grounded strength. Instead of "I'm anxious," say "I'm alert and preparing." Instead of "I'm not ready," say "I'm becoming the kind of person who handles this." Instead of "I always mess up," say "I'm still learning and I'm improving." Seneca wrote, "We become brave by doing brave acts." That includes the act of rewriting our own internal dialogue. You don't need permission. You don't need anyone else to validate your new narrative. You just need to live it, and the more you repeat it, the more your actions follow. Your mind is constantly listening. Give it better words to believe in. But know this, rewriting your story is not a one-time event. It's a daily ritual. Every time something challenges your old identity, you'll feel the pull to go back to your default settings. See? You still don't have what it takes. In that moment, you don't argue. You respond with the new narrative. I used to believe that. I don't anymore. That's how identity shifts. Not through force, but through repetition, through patience, through persistence. And over time, this new story becomes your baseline. You start acting like someone who trusts themselves, someone who speaks with intention, someone who sees setbacks not as signals of failure, but as moments of refinement. The story doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be yours, rooted in awareness, written in strength, carried with discipline. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to do next. The script in your head isn't set in stone. It's written in chalk. And you, right now, have the eraser. Use it. Not because your past was wrong, but because your future deserves a better narrator. The world will always try to shake you, through noise, through fear, through doubt. But the power to stand still, to think clearly, to act with purpose, that's always been yours. You don't need to control everything around you. You just need to command what's within. And when you do, nothing can touch your peace. Watch one of the suggested videos on your screen to keep sharpening the mind. And thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal, where strength begins in silence.